No, porn is not the cause of your ED. It just isn't. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to break down why I think porn is not the cause of ED. I'm not saying that porn helps it, and there may be cases where, excessive use of porn and excessive masturbation may cause erectile dysfunction of some type, but generally speaking and largely in my real practice in consulting with real men looking at real labs, getting accurate reporting of symptoms, not internet mythology, stuff you hear on Reddit, stuff you read on YouTube, people making stuff up, I have not found porn to be the cause of ED. I mean, how could it be, right? Do you think porn messes with the vasculature of your penis? Give me a mechanism. I'd love for someone to give me a mechanism for porn-induced ED that actually explains at a physiologic level in penile tissue how porn causes ED. You're not going to find it. It doesn't exist, and we'll go over that. In the meantime, wanted to give you guys a coupon code for both of our nootropic stacks. The code is 15 now. It saves you 15% on either the Cortex nootropic stack, which is flow in a bottle and very, very highly stimulating, or the Torque nootropic stack, shipped all around the world, both of these to 40 different countries. People just love these stacks. I mean, this is significant mental energy that lasts. Go use the code 15 now to either get a bottle of the Torque stack or the Cortex stack. Down in the description of the video, as you can find the links for those stacks. Also, if you have ED, I'm a consultant on lots of things, but erectile dysfunction and sexual optimization is one of them. You can book me under a minute at livecortex.com. All right, so let's just step back for a second and look at the physiology of the male penis. You have the dorsal vein. That's one of your most predominant blood flowing veins in the junk. You have all these arteries here. Okay, so those are kind of smaller arteries that carry blood to different areas of the corpus cavernosa. You have the superficial dorsal vein. You have the deep dorsal vein. You've got the dorsal artery, and of course the dorsal nerve. There's an area of the kind of base of the male penis called the isocavernosal muscle, which you can find right here in red, which is, one of the major facilitators of erection function. That's why people suggest doing Kegels if you have ED, among other things, which I'm going to get to, because of that essentially, is the muscle that makes it possible for you to hold blood or keep blood, in your junk when you're stimulated or you have an erection. Now, of all these things, okay, of all the blood vessels, of the dorsal vein, the dorsal nerves, of these kind of smaller blood vessels within, I would like anybody out there, right, who thinks they're an expert on porn-induced ED to explain to me exactly how watching pornography makes changes in these muscles, the isocavernosal muscle, the dorsal nerve, the dorsal vein, the arteries within the junk, the glands, the corpus cavernosa, the corpus spongiosum. Any of these areas, just explain to me some physiologic mechanism by which porn can make changes to this physiology. You're not going to find it. And the main reason that I want to do this video is because I have guys come to me that think their ED is porn induced. And therefore, for the last 4 years, they have sat with erectile difficulties, not able to actually have sex because they thought it was porn induced, and they never looked at their estradiol. They never looked at their testosterone. They never looked at the prolactin. They don't even fucking have labs. They never took an alternative approach. They never thought to optimize the vasculature of their junk. They never got a shockwave device. They never did the P shot. They never got on TRT. They never got on HCG. They never got on an AI when they were on TRT and HCG and tried to manage their estradiol. They never looked at prolactin. They never took cabergoline to maybe lower it, or maybe it's in range, okay? But maybe it needs to be at between 4 and 8 nanograms per milliliter. That's where I've actually seen erections come back in cases where prolactin wasn't even out of range, but you just needed to lower it a little bit. They never looked at their sleep. They never looked at their diet. They never looked at the booze that they were consuming that was converting a lot of their testosterone to estradiol. Estradiol exposure at high levels consistently triggers literal venous fucking leakage. God, it's like I am ranting about this, so excuse my French, but I am absolutely sick and tired of guys coming to me, I've got ED, it was porn. What have you been doing for the last 3 years? Because I can almost guarantee you, with the exception of those very rare cases where people go excessive with crazy amounts of porn, and that is messing with hypothalamic dopamine release, which is remediable and never takes into account what's happening with the hormones, which largely control neurotransmitters at this level, and the limbic system's ability to activate in terms of sexual function, libido, and erection quality. It's like what ends up happening is guys waste time. You think, okay, I'll just take a break from porn, or I'll not watch porn or whatever, and that somehow is going to like fix what is obviously a vasculogenic, a hormonal, and an otherwise blood flow, possibly a pelvic floor, or a combination of all these things kind of problem, which when you get to the bottom of resolving those things with targeted protocols, like actual science-based strategies, well, then you have your erection quality back. Then you have morning wood back. Like everything comes back. How is it possible that in a lot of these cases, guys can take 20 to 50 milligrams Viagra, or 10 to 20 milligrams, or even 5 milligrams of tadalafil, generic Cialis, and then still get erections? And it's like, okay, maybe Cialis doesn't work like in those doses. Maybe you need to take 20. But it's like, if you can still produce an erection with Cialis, well, then it's like that is making it so that blood actually stays trapped in the veins, the arteries, the blood vessels, and you can maintain an erection. Like without the Cialis in the mix, if that's not able to happen, there is a physical problem with either the hormonal cascades that dictate erection quality, predominantly testosterone and DHT, but also an excess in either estrogen or prolactin because you're fucking smoking weed, and that rises in estradiol, which will absolutely negatively affect your erections. Or something else needs to be addressed in all these different physiologic elements of penile function and erection function or hormonal function in order for you to get this resolved. I had a guy, okay, and again, the reason I'm ranting about this is I have too many people coming to me that aren't looking at any of this other stuff, the real causes of erectile dysfunction, and they just think it's porn. I recently had a guy come to me that for years has had ED and thought it was porn induced, hasn't looked at labs. Turns out the guy had taken finasteride some time ago, doesn't even have fucking labs, dude. I mean, guys, you have to stop with the internet mythology, and you have to start thinking about what's happening at the physiologic level so that you can get to the actual bottom of something, granular, something tangible, so that you can modify physiology, erectile physiology, penile physiology, hormone physiology, in some minor cases in conjunction with those things, neurotransmitter physiology. But again, that's not really the predominant cause. Again, no one can even name a mechanism for this. You start working on those things, and then you get resolution of your ED in time if you're doing the right things. So the first thing, okay, if you have erectile dysfunction, the first thing you should do if you think it's porn induced is stop thinking about the fact that the idea that it may be porn induced. Certainly stay away from porn if you think that it messes with a very little bit with the hypothalamic dopamine part of arousal, that sort of beginning sequence of arousal, because porn can definitely do that. So stay away from it like while you're recovering. But if you have ED, my friend, there is something wrong with the hormonal cascades or the vasculature of your junk, and it's usually both. And or if all of that seems normal, because a doc's gonna go, that's normal, well then why does the person have this condition? See, this is where people get confused. You may need therapy in these areas. You may need testosterone therapy. You may need to have HCG in the mix to keep the testicles functional, intratesticular testosterone being produced, and all the neurosteroids that get produced therein in that process. You may need to adequately manage the estrogen. You may need to lower prolactin, even if it's in range, lower it a little bit, and then keep it there for a considerable period of time thereafter. If there was significant lack of penile blood flow and thus erections, usually determined by, or at least facilitated or not facilitated by, nocturnal erections. If you're not having nocturnal erections in morning wood, that's a problem. That's your maintenance system of your erections. Like if you're not having that for a considerable period of time, think about what might happen if you're starving an organ of blood. Just think about it for a second, right? From a general perspective, that organ is not going to function the way that it's supposed to, and it's going to atrophy. So in order to reverse ED, which people think is porn induced, which most of the time it isn't, you have to get the hormone straight. And you may actually need to be bringing in things like vacuum pumps and doing very specific strategic based pumping in order to keep blood flow, like almost maintenance it, recover some of the venous function. You may need to buy something like the Phoenix. Look, admittedly, their marketing is very scammy and sort of misleading. They went and astroturfed on Reddit, and that was completely disingenuous, and I think they're assholes for doing that. However, shockwave therapy in penile tissue has been proven effective. I actually got one myself just to see. And yes, it increased sensation and it made my erections firmer. So, you may need to, bite the bullet and do that and stop reading, the bullshit on Reddit. Oh, it doesn't work. That's because you didn't look at your testosterone. You didn't look at your estradiol. You didn't look at your prolactin. You took finasteride and thought it was porn instead and thought, yeah, maybe I don't need to modify 5-alpha reductase or work on DHT binding or increasing DHT conversion or synthesis. Hormones. It's like, please, guys, stop with the nonsense, okay? If you have erectile dysfunction, the fucking first thing you should be doing is looking at your testosterone. And I don't care if doc comes back and says it's normal. I don't care, because most of the time, normal is not optimal. Why do guys go on TRT? Some guys go on TRT with 500, 600 nanograms per deciliter total test, low end of the range, but still in range. Free testosterone, estradiol is usually sitting at 20 something, prolactin's at like 10. Should be good. The numbers are there. But maybe you need therapy. Okay, that's TRT actually stands for testosterone replacement therapy. What is therapy to you? Do you know what therapy is? Do you have an idea of what therapy is? Therapeutically modifying something, giving you something that on paper it doesn't look like you need, but you don't know what's happening at the tissue level. Okay? Androgens, man, they bind to certain tissues, muscle tissue, skeletal tissue, penile tissue, my friends. They bind to these tissues. The entire development of your junk is androgen dependent. Have you been smoking fucking pot? Because the estrogenic effects of pot are enough to cause ED, especially if you're smoking for consistent periods of time. Also is prolactogenic. Then you got estrogen itself, which is prolactogenic. Prolactin, by the way, the scientific literature and the general consensus on prolactin is that because it inhibits gonadotropin release, LH and FSH, and therefore testosterone production, that's the predominant cause of erectile dysfunction when you've got high prolactin or you had high prolactin. And this is not true. Yes, it could be the case that inhibiting testosterone can cause erectile dysfunction, no question about it. That's why I'm always saying look at hormones. But at the same time, prolactin has other mechanisms at the penile base, the vascular level, that inhibit erection function and, dare I say, actually damage the vasculature of the male penis and prevent erections from happening. You got to do rehab after you've been hyperprolactinemic for a long time. No question about it, my friends. Even if your prolactin's fine now, guys that went on SSRIs, prolactin is certainly surging because it's under positive serotonergic control. Not sure if you knew this. It's not the 5-HT1A receptor, PSSD, guys. I'm so sick of hearing about these stupid fucking theories that hold no water in real life. Excess serotonin leads to excess prolactin. Hyperprolactinemia for consistent periods of time will cause erectile dysfunction, even when the prolactin's in range. And then you got to rehab it, my friends. All these conditions, PFS as well. These predominantly female hormones that have a very, very negative effect on penile function, like prolactin and like estradiol, are typically over-converting. You're over-making those hormones when you're in some of these conditions, PFS specifically. It's like once you get everything back in range, it's like if you haven't done rehab on the junk, you're not going to get better. All right, so this video was not about strategies to deal with ED. I've done plenty of other videos on TRT, on dialing in TRT HCG AI protocols, on using shockwave therapy. I haven't really done one on pumping, but maybe I'll get around to doing that. This isn't a scientific video about how to fix erectile dysfunction. This is a breakdown of and really a highlighting of the ridiculous notion that you watching things on a fucking laptop or a phone is changing the vasculature of your penis. It is not. It cannot. It will not. It never will be the cause of ED for most guys. And the major point is, if you have ED and you think it's porn induced, probably it isn't, but why the hell aren't you looking at everything else right now? That's the point. If you get anything from this, look at everything I just said. Look at your testosterone, look at your estradiol, look at your prolactin, look at your free testosterone, look at your sex hormone binding globulin, look at your vitamin D status, look at your food consumption, look at your micronutrient consumption, look at whether or not you're consuming alcohol, converting a lot of your test to estrogen, look at whether or not you're consuming a lot of cannabis and over estrogenizing yourself, if that's even a fucking phrase. I made it up. And therefore exposing your penis to excessive levels of VEGF, which cause venous leakage and ED. Look at all these things and start taking action. Don't be one of those guys that thinks you have porn-induced ED and you haven't fucking run labs for any of this stuff in 3 years. You are doing it wrong. And you're going to stay with ED until you get to the bottom of what's happening. Think of this at a physiologic level. Mechanics, actual mechanical stuff happening. Hormonal and mechanical. And go address it. Appreciate you guys being with me. Sorry for the rant. All right, as I said in the beginning of the video, changing the tone, coupon code 15 now saves you 15% on both the Cortex stack and the Torque stack right now. Get those stacks in the description of this video. Go save money on 2 very highly stimulating but very powerfully balanced nootropic stacks that ship globally. People love these stacks and you're going to love them too. As I explained, I am a consultant. It's a good degree of the reason why I understand that porn isn't really the cause of ED. It's like, how could it be? I see real men in real time with real labs and real situations, and over time I have just not found it to be the cause, because addressing all of these other things resolves the ED whether porn is in the picture or not. Anyway, sexual dysfunction is one of the predominant things that I do consulting on. It includes erectile dysfunction. You can hire me in under a minute at livecortex.com. There are a few sexual dysfunction consultations. One of them is purely erectile dysfunction consultation. You can book me in under a minute. You'll work directly with me. We'll get to the bottom of what's happening and get you on a plan to resolve it. The major thing I want to say is don't be ignoring the hormones and all this other stuff that we talked about. The vasculature of your penis, the blood vessel health, blood vessel integrity, pelvic floor muscles, and whether or not they're functioning correctly. Don't ignore this stuff because you think it's porn-induced ED. It is likely not. And you're missing chances to resolve your ED, all while you're continuing to atrophy because you believe the idiots on Reddit. Pleasure being with you. Talk to you next time.